Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Leanie Lambrink. A trial began this week in a Yellowknife courtroom for a Hay River man facing sex-related charges. 39-year-old Justin Minute is accused of voyeurism, sexual assault, and child luring. The court heard testimonies from the complainant and a witness in the judge-only trial. Nadir Hashmi reports.
A warning, some of these details might be distressing to viewers. The alleged incidents first came to light in February 2020 when a teenager filed a complaint with the Hay River RCMP. At the time, Justin Minute was working as a case manager at the South Mackenzie Correctional Center in Hay River, a job he still has according to the territorial government's employee directory. There's nothing to suggest that the allegations are related to his work. Minute has pleaded not guilty to all three charges. The complainant's identity is protected by a publication ban. She told the court this week about an incident when she found Minute's phone in the bathroom, pointed at the toilet with the camera app open. She also alleges other incidents included sexual jokes and Minute inappropriately touching her around her waist. A teenager at the time, she said the incidents made her feel uncomfortable around Minute. She first brought the allegations to the Hay River RCMP in February 2020 and again in 2022. In court, she was cross-examined by Minute's lawyer. He noted how many times she began her testimony with "I think" and implied it would be difficult to remember details from years ago. He also pointed out that when she spoke to the RCMP, she said she did not think the phone camera in the bathroom was recording. Another key witness gave evidence today that Minute confessed all allegations to her at one point. Minute's lawyer says that's the first time she's revealing this 5 years since the charges came forward. The trial continues this week. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A 15-year-old boy has died after falling through the ice near Pungnartu, Nunavut. RCMP say the accident happened near the flow edge on Thursday evening. Two other boys who also went through the ice managed to escape the water. Search and rescue found the body of the 15-year-old a few hours later. RCMP say it's continuing to investigate with the help of the Nunavut Coroner's Office. An update now into the issue of lead in the water at two Yellowknife schools. Families found out about the elevated levels of lead in the water at Acol William McDonald and Range Lake North schools last week. The NWT's education department says families weren't notified earlier because of a lack of coordination. The department has also cast doubt on those results, saying the tests weren't done using best practices.
There are very particular protocols that need to be followed when you're taking a sample of water, different times, and these were all just grab samples from a single location in a school, and typically you'd take samples at multiple locations, so things of that nature. It's the scientific end of things that my department wasn't fully equipped to deal with.
The government has committed to an independent review of what happened. A third party has also been brought in to do water testing at both schools. Results of that are expected in a week or two. Fulford says the territory will have a systematic approach to testing for lead in the future. Nunavut MP Lori Idlout has been named the NDP critic for 7 federal portfolios. Those files include Arctic sovereignty and security, Indigenous crown relations, Indigenous services, and Northern economic development. Idlout said in a Monday news release that her concerns about Arctic security and the infrastructure gap in Indigenous communities is why she ran for Parliament. She's one of 7 NDP MPs in Ottawa. The Alaska Highway is closed once again in northern BC. Drive BC says the closure is from Toad River to the Highway 77 cutoff. It's because of a wildfire. Road conditions can change quickly. For the latest, go to drivebc.ca. Meanwhile, Environment Canada has issued a special air quality statement for northeastern BC because of wildfire smoke. It says poor air quality and reduced visibility are expected for the next day or two. Wildfires in Saskatchewan continue to force more people out of their homes. Residents evacuating from the L'Orange area spent Monday night driving through hazardous conditions. In other parts of the province, fires are now entering communities and damaging structures. CBC's Alexander Silberman has more.
Fast-moving flames have forced more than 7,000 people in the L'Orange area to flee their homes, the latest community in Saskatchewan under an evacuation order. High winds pushed wildfire dangerously close to the community Monday, with flames breaching the airport about 6 kilometers from town. Residents of L'Orange, Air-Ronge, the Lac-L'Orange Reserve, and anywhere within a 20-kilometer radius were ordered to evacuate late Monday afternoon.
Holy
Hundreds of cars have been traveling down the main road out of town under hazardous conditions. Fire burning on both sides of the highway. Heavy wildfire smoke and limited to zero visibility is making the evacuation slow. The province says vehicles are being escorted through, only when safe to do so.
There was fire burning on both sides of the road, and to me, that's too close for comfort.
Adding to the chaos, limited gas and widespread phone and internet outages. And with the airport closed due to heavy smoke and fire, patients at the local hospital had to be taken out by ambulance instead of by plane. In Saskatchewan's northeast, more people have been forced to leave Denair Beach. The final remaining firefighters and all essential staff were evacuated yesterday. The southern half of the community has burned to the ground as neighbors watched from afar.
We shared video camera footage from our cameras of our houses until each one sequentially lit on fire.
Thousands of evacuees are arriving here in Prince Albert in search of help and a place to stay. This hotel is where tired and relieved evacuees from L'Orange are arriving to register with the Red Cross. But accommodations are quickly filling up, and many are driving hours south in search of a place to stay. The province is now looking to Alberta, hoping evacuees might be able to go there. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Prince Albert, Saskatchewan.
CBC Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault has been given special access to the Canadian military operation in Manitoba. In her exclusive reporting from the PAW, she brings us a first-hand look at the various aircraft assisting with the wildfire evacuations.
Okay, so this is the tarmac at the PAW. I just want to orient you here. Those yellow and red planes, those are the fire bombers from the province of Manitoba. If we come around here, some of these military helicopters that you see, these are Griffins. These are smaller choppers that have been going in and out of some of the communities. They can only take, like maybe 10 people at the most. The real workhorses, though, are right back there. You can see a Chinook. It's the Chinooks that have been bringing people out of Puckatawagan. It's hard to land and take off in Puckatawagan, especially with the heat. A Hercules plane has real trouble in extreme heat getting the lift it needs. It's also a very short runway, so that's why they've had to use the helicopters. But you can see the winds. The winds have been super gusty, so over the weekend, some of the Chinooks had to divert. All of that has added enormous stress to the people who live in Puck. We now know that most of them, if not all of them, as we speak right now, are out, thankfully. They've come through here to the PAW, and if we just go through here, this is a hangar at the airport where the Red Cross has been giving people the food, the blankets, the accommodation, and sort of the time they need to figure out what's next. And the most important thing right now is getting people a place to stay and getting them a level of comfort. This has been a really rough stretch. It is only early June, and the big anxiety here is this is going to be a long, hot summer. Adrian Arsenault, CBC News in the PAW.
To get a true scale of all the smoke from wildfires burning across Western Canada, we can take a look from space. This is a time-lapse of satellite images from Saturday up until yesterday. That black line going across the screen is the Canada-US border. Just right of center, you can see the Great Lakes. Gray smoke can be seen wafting south over North Dakota, Minnesota, and slowly drifting toward the East Coast. There are more than 55 active fires burning in Alberta, 18 wildfires in Saskatchewan, and 25 in Manitoba, with thousands of Canadians displaced from their homes. In the NWT, meanwhile, there are 8 active wildfires, and in the Yukon, there are 2.
This astonishing world, with its infinite possibilities, calls to the world shapers, impact makers, visioneers. Together, let's unlock potential everywhere.
Welcome to your new home.
Mais il est trop chaud. He understands French. I'm not seeing this as a suicide.
Someone sure wanted us to think it was.
Gallagher is suspect number 1.
Tell me, was it the mad politics you didn't like, or the fact that he's living with your wife? I know he's into something. I just gotta prove it.
No, we all have a past. Find his.
Be careful around Fitz. Donnie's got a lot of demons that tend to appear when no one expects it.
I brought a few friends along with me today.
3, 2, 1.
Mom, you're embarrassing me in front of the dragons. Take me home, James.
Full of surprises here on The Den. Dragon's Den. Watch free on CBC Gem.
12 of Britain's best amateur bakers have made it to the tent.
This is an absolute dream.
Every inch of their baking skill will be scrutinised.
Lovely jubbly.
Those that falter will leave the tent.
One wrong move and it's over.
You want a game? Bring it on.
Go, go, go!
Oh my God! We need help out there.
Yeah, we'll come for you.
This is it. Canada's ultimate challenge.
A house fire in Whitehorse's McIntyre Creek neighborhood has destroyed one home and damaged another.
We were sitting there having a barbecue, and then a bunch of smoke and down the street. So we ran down here, grabbed the fire extinguisher, and half the house was on fire.
Emergency crews arrived shortly after neighbors saw the flames at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Everyone inside was able to escape the home without injury, but Whitehorse's fire chief says some pets weren't so lucky. 6 cats lived at the property.
I do know crews worked on one cat, and seems to be doing okay. It's potential that there may have been some other pets that were lost.
Whitting says there is no confirmation any cats died at this time. He says the fire also caused damage to the siding of a neighboring home. A BC mining watchdog has just released a list of that province's most contaminated sites. One of them is close to home for some Yukoners. The former Cassiar asbestos mine is just south of the Yukon-BC border. Many residents and mine workers from Cassiar went on to have lethal lung issues. They tell stories of seeing green dust from the mine site every winter on the snow. Despite the BC government's attempts to work with a new buyer to get the site remediated, many are skeptical that not much has changed.
They don't have any intention of trying to clean up the mess or look after those that end up with serious illness. I mean, we used to eat the snow when we were kids. Every kid eats snow. So how much asbestos did we ingest?
Cassiar Jade Contracting is the mine site's current owner. The company says remediation of the site is underway. There's been a confirmed case of rabies in a caribou in Coral Harbour, Nunavut. The territory's chief public health officer says this is the first time a caribou has tested positive for the disease in the territory. The animal was seen attacking heavy equipment before its death in early April. Signs of rabies include strange and aggressive behavior, staggering and frothing at the mouth. The Department of Health says to avoid handling the carcass of an animal that may have rabies and not to eat its meat.
This does not mean that going forward you cannot eat caribou. Just observe before it is put down. And we also advise all hunters and people who go hunting and harvesting to really observe the animals before they are put down.
The department is urging people to monitor pets who spend time tied up outdoors. Anybody who's been bitten or scratched by an infected animal should go to the health the local health center immediately for treatment because rabies infections are almost always fatal. The department also says cases of rabies in caribou are rare. A new program in Iqaluit is helping feed people experiencing homelessness. The Ojotak Society has started a new food box program. Twice a week, volunteers fill bags with items like oil, milk, eggs, fruits, and vegetables. The society then delivers the bags to people without a permanent home. The Ojotak Society's program director says it's important for the community.
The food insecurity is really a huge problem that a lot of individuals and families face, and it's something as a community that we should be concerned about.
So far, the Society has delivered almost 400 boxes. The program is expected to run until the end of June. Nonprofit groups around the country are working to provide affordable housing. Many are buying buildings or finishing construction. But once those spaces are rented, the upkeep can be expensive. And as Shayna Luck reports, rising costs are making it even more challenging.
How are you, Peggy?
Nancy O'Regan needs a lot of building supplies. She's on the board of an affordable housing nonprofit called Community First. It bought a building to provide homes for 7 people, much cheaper than the private market. But it's costly to operate. O'Regan and all the other board members are volunteers. There's no money to hire staff. She says it's not sustainable.
There's no pots of money that come along with doing this work. I worry about, board member burnout.
In the last few years, all levels of government have created programs to help nonprofits buy or build. But once they become property owners, the organizations must manage their finances on their own, while charging lower rent than the private market. Some make up the difference by fundraising, but that's a tall order for the Guysborough Group.
Everyone is working a lot, and if I had to add a layer of fundraising to those efforts to build affordable housing, I'm concerned about the sustainability of the organizations.
This nonprofit in Antigonish already operates 28 units at a loss. Colleen Cameron is the board chair, another volunteer.
Our operations is not breaking even with the rental income that we have. So that's being supplemented through fundraising and grants that we can get.
There is another way. Some nonprofits charge market rent on some of their units to subsidize the lower cost ones. The Antigonish Society grappled with it for more than a year, but made a decision in May.
We're realizing we cannot build affordable housing and be sustainable without having market rents included.
They will include some market units in their next development to support the rest. Proponents argue that can result in more vibrant neighborhoods that are better for everyone, but it means fewer of the low-cost units. Back in Guysborough County, the plan is to build right here. If they charge market rent on some apartments, that would mean more income to expand. But Nancy O'Regan isn't sold yet.
I'm concerned about it because I know we need a lot of affordable housing. It's going to take us so much longer to get there if we have to do that.
She worries time is short.
This is a decision our board's going to be faced with, within the next half year.
Shayna Luck, CBC News, Guysborough, Nova Scotia.
The Liberal government has introduced new wide-sweeping legislation to tighten Canada's border. The Public Safety Minister says the 127-page bill aims to strengthen Canada's response to national and economic security threats and enhance the fairness of the immigration system. Ottawa says it also includes measures that'll address some U.S. concerns. Evan Dyer has the story.
This morning, I introduced Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act.
The bill proposes a number of changes to Canada's criminal code, police powers, and the way asylum claims are processed. A big part of it is about fentanyl.
Will ensure Canada has the right tools to keep our borders secure, combat transnational organized crime and fentanyl, and disrupt illicit financing.
Canada has been under pressure on fentanyl.
It's pouring in from China through Mexico and Canada, and they've got to stop it. And if they don't stop it, the tariffs are going to get worse, a lot worse.
There are a number of elements in the bill that have been irritants for the U.S., so we are addressing some of those issues.
Public Safety Minister Gary Ananda Sangari says the bill will give Canadian border guards more authority to search goods intended for export. The U.S. border czar has already been briefed, and Canada's envoy to Trump, Dominic LeBlanc, is selling the bill in Washington. The U.S. is embroiled in its own immigration drama with daily raids by immigration agency ICE, as its ambassador to Canada explained.
We're now tracking down people who are murderers, thieves, and rapists who are in the country illegally.
Refugee lawyers say the Canadian bill mimics aspects of U.S. law.
The government has adopted this FAR, which is essentially similar to an element in the U.S. asylum system. In the U.S., if you're in the country for more than a year, you can't seek refugee protection.
The government is asking other parties to support the bill, but Conservatives aren't sure it will be enough for Trump.
Has he listened to anything? Of course not. He'll do it his way. You've seen what he's done in the last 3 months.
I think that the title of the act is for show for the Trump administration.
There's a lot of doubt still about exactly what this 120-page bill means in practice, but all agree it's a major overhaul that goes far beyond the border itself. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
You heard U.S. President Donald Trump talk about tariffs in that story. Well, the White Horse has confirmed Trump will double tariffs on steel and aluminum to 50%. The new rate will kick in Wednesday. Canadian industries say the hike will have a devastating impact, and they're worried for the future. Nisha Patel has more.
Good afternoon, everybody.
The White House says U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum imports are about to double, going from 25% to 50% just after midnight.
This is a president who doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk too, and he's delivering on his promises to bolster our steel and aluminum industries in this country and to protect those jobs.
Tariffs have already hit Canadian steel producers hard. As costs rise, U.S. importers are buying less, and shipments south of the border are down 30%.
We basically consider the U.S. market closed, completely closed, doors slammed shut, if you will, to Canadian steel. So this is our SOS moment, I'm calling it. We need urgent action.
The steel industry employs thousands in cities like Hamilton and Sault Ste. Marie. Nearly 700 workers have been laid off so far.
We can't keep producing if one of our major markets is shuttered. I expect dramatic acceleration of production level loss and job loss.
About 90% of Canada's aluminum is destined for the U.S., but it's American buyers that are mostly bearing the brunt of higher costs.
And that's actually the biggest chunk of Canada's trade surplus with the U.S. is actually aluminum products, and in aluminum more than steel. The U.S. economy just doesn't have the capacity.
The tariffs affect more than raw materials. Toronto-based New Age sells garage cabinets and outdoor kitchens, which also face steeper duties.
There's a lot of uncertainty from the consumer. We're trying to eat as much of the cost as possible.
Still, the company weathered the steel and aluminum tariffs back in 2018, which lasted about a year.
This has been done in a very quick manner, which is that's the most challenging thing. But it is what it is. You just got to roll with the punches.
Those economic punches, though, seem to be more frequent these days. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Scientists have discovered the earliest evidence of bird nesting in the Arctic. Fossils from Alaska's North Slope show that birds nested in the area 73 million years ago. That means birds were reproducing in the Arctic during the Cretaceous period, when other dinosaurs still roamed the area. Pat Druckenmiller was part of the team that found tiny bird bones and teeth at sites on the Colville River in Alaska. He says finding bird fossils from the Cretaceous period is rare, but he says his team has built one of the largest collections of bird bones from that era in North America in the last 10 years.
And we have about 50 identifiable elements of birds now, which is, I know it may not sound like a lot, but in fact, it's a huge amount of bird bones. So we went from not being on the radar at all for having birds in Alaska, fossil birds, to all of a sudden being one of the best places on the continent.
Druckenmiller says the bones they found may belong to a group that includes modern birds. He and his team will be returning to the sites this summer in search of a partial or complete skeleton from the oldest members of modern birds. A Métis lawyer hopes his new book will help answer big questions about Indigenous rights in Canada. The book is called Indigenous Rights in 1 Minute, and it tackles complicated questions with short, simple answers. The author, also a UBC professor, jokes that he wrote it for people like himself with a short attention span.
I've been asked a lot of these questions year after year, and I thought I should put them all into a book, and that would be really helpful, because if we're going to move this reconciliation project forward in Canada, I think it's important for people to have a reliable source of basic information so they can have a more informed conversation about Indigenous rights.
McIver says the book is written for people outside of law, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous. The book hit store shelves last month. An Enuk artist from Happy Valley Goose Bay is having a moment in the spotlight. Shirley Morehouse is longlisted for the prestigious Sobey Art Award this year, and her solo show is about to open in St. John's, Newfoundland. Morehouse creates everyday items like aprons, oven mitts, and footwear made from natural materials like skins, beads, and claws.
They could look at my stitch works and compare it to my ancestor stitch work, and how I use that stitch work and that beadwork in a different way, to satisfy, my interpretation of my culture and my life, for future generations for their encyclopedia.
Morehouse was always interested in creating art, but at the time, the Inuit of Nunatsiavut were not recognized as Inuit by the federal government, so there wasn't a lot of support. She didn't let that stop her. At age 40, Morehouse took heritage craft classes, chasing her dream to create unique pieces. Now, 30 years later, her show, EEIs, will open at the Rooms Gallery in St. John's this Friday. That is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/north. Thanks for watching. I'm Leanie Lambrink. Have a good night.